Global air travel hits a record high in 2024 with nearly 9.5 billion passenger journeys. That's more than the entire world's population. Airports from Istanbul to Singapore are racing to expand runways and terminals, while airlines are pushing for longer non-stop routes that redraw the map of connectivity. Many countries are now trying to position themselves as aviation hubs. And with Taiwan set to open a new international terminal, we ask what makes an airport more than just an inevitable part of your journey. I'm Divya Gopalan, and you're watching Connected on Taiwan Plus. Helping us navigate the broader flight path of today's aviation challenges, we are joined by Lohmann, adjunct professor from the Griffith Institute for Tourism at Griffith University in Brisbane, Australia. And from Geelong, right here in Taiwan, Jin-ru, professor from the Department of Shipping and Transportation Management at the National Taiwan Ocean University. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the program. I will start with you, Guy. We're seeing travel numbers rebound to beyond pre-pandemic levels. Can you tell us what's driving this?
Well, Divya, there is certainly a lot of pent-up demand that is in some part of the world trying to catch up with what we've been calling a revenge in travel. A lot of people that couldn't travel during the pandemic is now very, very eager. We've seen this in Australia quite a lot. However, this is not quite well balanced across the world. For example, the market between China and Australia hasn't recuperated as before the pandemic yet.
Right. So in addition to that recovery, and then some, as you said, some airports and air regions not necessarily reflecting that, there are still a lot of projects happening with regards to airport expansions or even new airport terminals. Jin-ru, in 2024, more than 90 projects broke ground, including new terminals, expansions. Does that mean that travel is set to continue growing at this pace?
Yes, the air transportation is highly connected to the tourism, and the tourism is highly connected to the development of GDP, global domestic product. So as long as the economy is good, and the economy is developing, I think the air travel, the demand of travel is going to be follow the trend to be continue growing.
Guy, I just want to go back to the point you were saying where some areas have not recovered as much or some areas aren't seeing this kind of traction. Can you tell us what's behind the perhaps the lack of pickup in those areas or regions?
Well, there's certainly a lot of issues that are influencing that. There is some airlines that are having challenges with securing access to aircraft. We are aware of for example, the issues, the 737 MAX production, for example. We know the supply chains across the world has been impacted by the pandemic in many, many ways. And we're still recovering from the periods of times that we couldn't deliver aircraft, for example. We're also seeing a shift in the market in many ways. I will go back to the Chinese market, for example. The traditional way the Chinese used to travel before the pandemic consisted of very large groups organized in packages. What we are seeing now, particularly because the Chinese are becoming more experienced, we are seeing what we call the free independent traveler. So there's a lot more visitors from China coming on their own, booking their own hotels, even in a few cases renting cars, which is something that we wouldn't imagine about 8 years ago. So there's a shift in capacity of the industry to handle parts of the sector. There's also some issues in terms of the changing the demand for tourism.
That's interesting because many of those points are not being taken into account when you look at the busiest airports' growth. So let's take a look at the top 10 busiest airports this year, ranked by total airline seats based on OAG's Global Airline Schedules data. For the third time in 5 years, Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport took the top spot, serving nearly 63 million passengers. Dubai International Airport came in second with just over 60 million seats, followed by Tokyo's Haneda with around 55 million seats booked. Not far behind are London's Heathrow Airport, Dallas Fort Worth International, Denver International, and Guangzhou Baiyun International Airport. Now, this is interesting. Istanbul Airport claimed 8th place, marking its debut in the world's top 10 busiest airports. Jin-ru, firstly, I want to ask you, how significant are these rankings? Do these rankings really reflect the status of the city or the region, or are they just numbers?
Okay, to me, it's just number. It's not anything significant to the development of the airport and the catchment. I think we should only focus on how much value you create from those passengers or cargo using the airport. In other words, we need to look into what's the meaning back to the number, not just based on the traffic volume to try to relate it to the development of the airport.
Just to add the DVA there in terms of what Professor Yen has mentioned, what is very interesting to see is that, for example, when you look at Atlanta, it's a very, very important hub, a domestic hub for the United States. So it's basically exists because of the decision from certain airlines to operate out of the airport. When you look at, for example, the case of Dubai, it's quite an impressive outcome. When we consider that the local population of Dubai, proportionally of the number of travelers that fly through the airport, is massive. So it's the ability of Dubai Airport to really leverage together with the airline and the what we call the destination management organization to facilitate Dubai to be what we call a gateway or a hub. So it's quite impressive that such a small population can have a very, very large airport. And then you look at Japan, for example, will be a totally scenario, a country with a high population, but with a very, very high GDP. So as Professor Yen has mentioned, that they are numbers, and the reason behind them can really vary based on many different ways. I mean, you know, you also mentioned Heathrow there. Heathrow, no doubt, is a very important, London is a very important financial and trade place in the world. So that justifies not just in terms of having a very large population, a very large demand that requires flights and cargo out of the UK and London, but also is a center of services and finance and trade that attracts a lot of movement there as well.
I want to go back to the point of adding value there. Jin-ru, Singapore's Changi Airport contributes about 5% of the country's GDP. It's really an airport hub in so many, an aviation hub in so many ways, servicing not only the passengers, but also the country. Can you tell us how many, just this idea of how it manages to do that and whether that is a sustainable form of supplementing or boosting GDP?
Okay, that's a whole package back in the back of the Singapore development because the country combined a lot of programs. For example, the tax reduction. If you move your headquarters to Singapore, then you got a lot of deduction of your tax. So for Singapore, this is the first one. The central government back the development of the airport. The second one is that Changi Airport, they always have space to increase the capacity of the airport. For example, Terminal 5. And the third one is that Changi Airport, they always plan ahead in advance to their growth of their traffic, not like other airports, including Taipei, TPE, Taoyuan International Airport, we and the other several airports in Asia, we try to catch up our traffic demand. So in this case, Changi Airport, including the central government, they do a very good job, try to use the airport as an engine to increase their GDP. But unfortunately, this case is not similar in Taiwan. We try to do the same thing, but so far, the GDP contributed by TPE is still limited.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about that and the new terminal a little later. But before I go to that, Guy, I understand you've studied how Singapore has managed to make itself an aviation hub and the hub's contribution to the overall country. Can you explain what makes Singapore, aside from being able to plan ahead, as we've just heard, what makes it so special? And is this the gold standard?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is a gold standard in many ways. And other places, like I've mentioned earlier about Dubai, has been copying the Singapore model. So as Professor Yen was saying earlier, Singapore, like Hong Kong, is the classic definition of entrepot. Entrepot is that French word that basically means a place, a port, a city where you brings good in and out. And this is achieved basically by maritime freight, for example. And to support that, the government of Singapore also created an airport that is very, very easy for you to transit through, not just in between flights, but also for you to transit through in terms of easy access to visa, electronic visa. There's hardly any queue when you arrive at immigration. You have a fantastic, extremely well-rated airport with a lot of amenities and facilities. You have a swimming pool. I have the pleasure once in a long transit route, I had a swim at the airport public pool. You can relax in the butterfly garden there. You can have the best shopping experience in the world. And on the top of that, the airport, the airline, and also what I was saying before, the tourism organizations facilitate for this process to be very, very easy for the traveler. Now, who benefits from that? Everybody benefits from that. It's a great airline with a great airport and a great destination that you can decide to stay for a night or so in between a long trip between, let's say, Australia and Europe. And at the same time, you can also easily transit through from one flight to the next. So it is extremely well done. For anyone who has experienced Singapore will say that.
So on that note, I want to quickly get your thoughts, Guy, on Istanbul Airport, who's just managed to break into the top 10 rankings. What have they done to be able to do that?
Well, it's a very similar model, Divya. In many ways, we got to remember the following. Now, Turkish Airlines is the airline that flies to most international ports in the world. Okay, so they are creating a very, very dispersed route, global route. They're very ambitious. They build together with the government. They have a new airport with fantastic facilities and exactly resembles that model that we were talking about. The main difference between Istanbul and Singapore is the fact that Singapore airport is extremely well located in terms of the city. So you can experience Singapore even if you have a connection of 5-6 hours. In the case of Istanbul, unfortunately, the airport is quite far away from the city, which doesn't help in the same way. But besides that, world-class airline, fantastic airport experience, and a great destination. But they still have to work around integrating them more.
What is considered far away?
Well, in the sense of things that help airports is, for example, having a rail connection, right? So if you can access a CBD of a city in 30 minutes, that is a fantastic experience. what we've been seeing more and more as cities grow is that the airport's being pushed out of the city. So that particular airport in Istanbul is about an hour away, and the traffic jams are not the best in the world when you look at compared to Singapore, for example.
Okay, so Jin-ru, does that sound familiar when it comes to Taiwan? As Taiwan tries to make itself its Taoyuan Airport a hub, an aviation hub, and also support or somehow contribute to its GDP, which airport do you think it should follow, and what do you feel needs to be done as this Terminal 3 starts to come online?
Okay, we like Professor Lohmann just mentioned, try to improve a lot on the tourism or the cargo shipment through the airport. There are two major institutes, the airport and the airlines. Unfortunately, we have three airlines. That's good and also bad. We are not like Singapore have only one Singapore Airlines. And that's one issue. We have to have a lot of effort to try to make them cooperate. And that's one thing. The second one, I think for TPE, Taiwan International Airport, we need to fix a lot of issues. The first one is the congestion through the land side using private cars. Like Professor Lohmann just mentioned, we do have the subway system connect between Taipei CDB to TPE airport, but because the management of the parking system at TPE is to me is poor, because the fee of the parking is too low, and they don't differentiate short-term parking and long-term parking, and so the lane side or curbside or parking lot congestion is very serious now, and you really don't see any off-peak hours at TPE. And the third one and last one is we need to improve the infrastructure, like we are going to mention later, the third terminal as soon as possible. And also we need to rebuild a new terminal, because Terminal 1 and Terminal 2 are relatively old, and it's very difficult to attract people from outside Taiwan to attract them to transfer their flight at TPE. Yeah.
Right. And you said we're going to talk about Terminal 3. So let's talk about Terminal 3 before we wrap up the segment. Jin-ru, what is Terminal 3 expected to achieve, and can it position Taiwan as a hub? Is it enough to have a brand new terminal to position Taiwan as an aviation hub?
Okay, Terminal 3 is going to operate in 2027. That's about 2 years from now. That's the whole terminals. After the Terminal 3s, we are going to have a much better transfer facility in the near future. And before the full operation of Terminal 3, we are going to have the operation of the so-called north wing of Terminal 3 at the end of this year. That will add new gate with the air bridge connection. And at gate, maybe it's nothing to other major port, but it's about 20% more compared to we only have 38 gate connecting to air bridge. So that's 20% more. So I'm hoping that after the end of this year, we will have a good or improved facility at the air side of the Terminal 3.